So fuel system's all done. We've got the pump in the tank, we've changed the filler. We've got our diesel filter, which is obviously a bit different to a petrol fuel filter. It's got a water trap in the bottom of it. It's just a different way of doing it. Clean fuel is extremely important with a diesel. The injector pump is a very fine tolerance bit of gear, so any water or dirt or anything in there is bad for it. It'll wear it out and the thing just won't run anymore. So all that's good to go. That's all just pretty much OEM stuff. It's the bracket and everything's just off a diesel version of this car. So I've done a bit of wiring as well. There's not much wiring in this vehicle, like with the diesel, because it's obviously not controlled by an ECU or anything like that. But we've still got some basic gear that it's got to be wired up. The alternator, of course, it's on the other side of the engine now, so I had to cut all the original wiring out and put extended stuff in it. It's got its own loom running across. It also incorporates the glow plug wiring. So I have to put a big relay in over there to power the glow plugs. They're a pretty high current device. They're basically like a little resistor that glows red and heats the cylinder when in cold weather to allow the engine to start. Otherwise you're flat out getting them to start in cold weather. So that's all sorted. I've integrated it all just to make it look neat and just don't like having wires going everywhere for no reason. So that's all good. And this is to go inside the car. I've used a Haltech firewall grommet. It's exactly the right size, so thanks Haltech. So this has just got your tacho, aircon. It's got the control for the actual glow plug relay, and just the ignition wire for the pump to actually allow the pump to allow the engine to run, and temp gauge. So not much to it, but it's still a bit of work. You got to do it right, otherwise you'll just have problems. Although it is a mechanical based engine, it still needs those things to run. Otherwise you're not going to get far. So that's all good and ready to go inside. We've got the exhaust manifold back. Matt's straightened it out for us. It got a bit warped because the engine's so long. When we welded it up, the flange plate buckled a bit, so he did a bit of metallurgical magic and heated it up in spots and made it straighten itself out, and then flattened it out. So it's ready to go. That's it there. The usual, simple logs. There's not many welds because it's using T-sections, which have got good radiuses in them and stuff like that. You can see where Matt's heated it in points and then ground it back again to straighten it out, and then given it a plane. So that's ready to go on. The flange looks funny. That's because it's a Subaru flange. I've got a spare turbo from one of our Toyota development kits for the 86s, so I'm using that. It's a GTX 2863, so it's pretty much ideal size for this engine. When you're talking in diesel terms, you can pretty much halve the size of the engine and then think about what sort of turbo you'd use on a petrol engine that size. That's about what you want to use. The engines, even though they've got a large capacity, they don't rev and they don't have a lot of exhaust flow, so you can't put a GT35 on it like you would a 4.2 litre petrol engine. It just won't work. It'll never come on boost and it'll just be useless. You may as well be NA. So keep that in mind if you're ever trying to size up a turbo. Halve the size of the engine. Think about what you'd put on that if it was a petrol. So 2 litre petrol engine, 2860, TD42, that sort of thing. That's the size of turbo you want to use. So here it is. It's had a hard life already. It's been used on our test car, the Donkey, which we've now upgraded to a GT35 to do more testing. Still in good nick. Make good power on this. It's got a V-bend adapter thing that we use on our turbo kit, so it makes it easy to make a dump pipe. I've just got to find an actuator for it to operate it. So the mounting of it, you see it's mounted sort of low. The factory turbo engines, they've got a low mount turbo and it's a bit lower than that and a bit further back. They can be a bit of a pain because the exhaust is really close to the firewall, so it's hard to get a nice dump pipe out of them. So I've split the difference and just moved it forward a little bit and lifted it up a slight amount just so you've got a bit more access to it. You can high mount the turbos. A lot of people do because they want to see their turbo up high. It's kind of the disadvantages of that is you're putting heat up into the engine bay that you shouldn't be. Like it's not a bloody RB26, it's a diesel. So putting them down low gives you the advantage of keeping the exhaust heat out of the engine bay. And also it simplifies things a little bit with these because with the heater hoses and stuff on these Patrols, they've got some crazy routing for everything. So these heater hoses normally go over there and then they do some bloody backflips on the firewall and come around, and it's just complicated for no reason. Well, the reason it's like that is because they make left-hand drive versions of them and they try to accommodate both, but in the process they make this incredibly complex setup for basically two hoses going to the heater, so when you do a low mount you can just get rid of all that and just go straight over there and put a piece of hose straight into the heater. Neatens up everything, keeps it simple, because when you're bashing these things around in the middle of Australia in the bush, you want to be able to get at things, and you want as little stuff to go wrong as possible. So taking away things like that will make a difference in the long run, as is putting the turbo in a practical position where it's not going to cook things and that sort of thing. So that's why we've chosen to put it there. Radiator we've also got from Olcock. It's basically just a standard replacement Koyo, so reasonable quality radiator. These things are known for overheating. It's a bit of a thing with them. But every diesel can overheat. It's not really a TD42 specific thing. It's any diesel that's got something wrong with it will overheat, and that's the problem with them is they will have a cracked head. So people go to the massive efforts to put billet water pumps and giant radiators that cost $1,500 in them, and it's not going to fix it. If there's something wrong with the engine, it's not going to. You can do whatever you like. It's not going to not overheat if combustion gases are getting in the cooling system. So the factory radiator is like 900 by 500. It's enormous. There's no way in the world it's not enough for this engine. So next time you're thinking about buying ridiculously sized radiators to try and fix a problem like that, that's not the problem. It's probably the head. Just buy a new head and put it on and it'll fix it. So radiator's good. Fan, I did have a bigger fan I was going to put on it, but it's offset a bit wrong, so it's probably not going to fit. But as I said, if there's nothing wrong with the engine and you've got a new radiator, this fan is fine. It's got to be shrouded, of course, which the TB45 shroud is the correct one for this engine anyway. So don't see any problems with that. So that pretty much all just bolts in. As I said, this was an optional engine in this vehicle. The reason I probably haven't actually mentioned the reason why we're doing it is because whilst it is an option in this vehicle, you'll pay 25 to 30 grand for this car that's a 1998 model if it's got this engine in it. So they hold their value ridiculously, and for that reason you can just go and buy this car, which costs 5 grand, and pull the petrol engine out and take it to the dump and get an old TD42. So it's an economies thing. You can make that car that's 25 to 30 grand from factory for a lot less money, and that's what we're basically doing. The other thing is you can't get a diesel with the TI interior and all that, your dual aircon, leather seats, all that junk. They only come in sort of a lower spec model, and you also can't get them in automatic. So auto is becoming very popular with four-wheel drives in Australia, because it works really well when you're forward driving. It gives you a lot more control over your wheel spin and that sort of thing. When you're trying to climb rough terrain and that, you don't want to be on and off the clutch and being brutal about it. The automatic smooths everything out and keeps your traction there, which is what you need if you want to get up a big hill. So we're good. We're going to put stuff back together now. We're getting there.
Disrespecting a turbo for, bro?
Because it's not curved in the right direction for my liking.
Al is welding on a 90-degree bend onto the outlet of the turbo. This makes for a tighter radius bend as there is limited room with the turbo mounted low and close to the chassis rail. A custom wastegate actuator bracket and rod have been made as the compressor housing on the turbo has been clocked to a position that did not fit any aftermarket items. The turbo gets bolted on with a new gasket and Al starts making a dump pipe to join up to the existing 3-inch exhaust.
Kramer is even lazier than you, Rodriguez. You know what's helpful when you're welding? Some lummox leaning against the bench.
So where'd this airbox here come from? What's this?
It's the factory TD42 airbox.
Cool.
It's big and it's got a big filter in it, so it'll do.
No snorkel?
Yeah, I'll put a big bogan snorkel on it, just for looks. 4-inch.
The turbo has been bolted on and it's time to start mounting an intercooler. Before we do, Al has to fit up the transmission coolers. Al is using 2 of the standard automatic transmission coolers that have been connected in series. This helps with increased efficiency in cooling for the transmission fluid, which is essential when doing harsh off-road hill climbs or when towing a trailer. Intercooler being used is a generic 450 by 300 by 76mm core, which to be fitted to the front of the Patrol requires some modifications to the grille. Luckily, Marty was around to help with some moral support.
What are you doing, Woody?
Just trying to clearance the grille a little bit. Al's struggling to mount the intercooler, so...
Are you struggling? Why? We've done this before, man. This is not uncommon. Trying to smash bits of car parts, bodies back onto the car.
Looks
Because it's got chopped bits. Yeah. Is this to fit a big giant intercooler?
no, just a normal intercooler.
Heaps of room, man. Look. I can... There's heaps of...
There's heaps of room if you remove everything. But then the air conditioning won't work.
Aircon's important in this part of the world, isn't it?
It is.
Do you understand you guys live in one of the nicest parts of the entire world?
Paradise, bro.
It is, isn't it?
Paradise.
Paradise and turbo diesel Nissans. Does it get any better, Alan? You just really want to grind this, don't you? That means shut up, doesn't it?
With enough plastic removed from the grille and a minor amount from the air conditioning condenser fan, the intercooler is able to be fitted up slightly offset to the driver's side of the vehicle. A single 90-degree alloy mount bracket is bolted to the bonnet latch assembly and welded onto the top of the intercooler. A couple of straight stainless straps are then bolted to the lower radiator support panel.
Does it work, Alan?
going on, Al?
Just pulling out unwanted objects from under the dash.
Oh yeah. Like what? Next time on the SKID factory, the injectors are bled, the TD42 is up and running, and we are just about ready for a test drive.